Hey everybody, today we're taking a hands-on look at the brand new Canon Rebel T6i. Very similar to the T6s, which has a multi-control wheel in the back. There's some menu features that are a little bit different. Functionally, when we're looking at the core functionality, they're basically very similar cameras. 24 megapixel sensor, the first major update that we've seen in the sensor since like 2010. Brand new focusing systems, optical, as well as video tracking. Very excited to test that out. I'm really curious about the sensor. Does it have improved dynamic range? How's the ISO performance? How does it shoot for portraits? Things of that nature. We're going to take you guys along and show you what I think about this great new Canon Rebel. The first thing that you're going to notice when you grab it is the grip is different. It's more ergonomic. I would say it's about 1/4 of an inch deeper. And because we can get more surface area on the grip itself, it feels more professional. The T5i I didn't really like because I could never really feel like I can get my hand tight on it. So that's the first thing you'll notice when you pick it up. Okay, so I have the 100 to 400 millimeter push-pull zoom. This is the version 1. Kind of a lens you typically wouldn't put on a Rebel. But because we have this 19 cross type autofocus, I want to see how well it does for action type shooting. Got some birds. You know, wondering about sports. In the past, this focusing system has been outstanding. Something that's different is the dedicated focus button. It's on top to the left of your primary selector wheel. So to change your focusing clusters, you're going to push this, toggle through your different clusters. If you want to change your focusing squares, you're going to push it and then use the directional pad. So we'll take a look here and see if we can get some interesting birds. I'm shooting on RAW and JPEG right now, and the buffer seems to fill up pretty quick. The focusing system seems to be super responsive. I'm impressed with it. Oh, look at that. There's a huge bird out there. It's hiding from me. Takes a little bit of getting used to this focusing button up here, but it's nice. I like it. It doesn't feel like a Rebel. It feels more like a 7D where you're toggling that multi-function button. Even when I'm shooting, occasionally I see it drop focus every once in a while, not often, but it's very good. The focusing systems, from what I can see so far, are impressive. So initially I was shooting with RAW and JPEG, not getting a lot of shots with the buffer. Flipped it over to JPEG only. Take a listen. And it could probably keep on going. It'll need some more tests, but the initial impression on the buffer is that if you're shooting JPEG, you're gonna get a lot of shots in on this. 5 frames per second. That's really nice for a Rebel. I'm impressed with it. So what we're going to do now is to test out the center focusing square at 1.4 wide open to see if it has a similar issue to the Canon 760D. I don't think it does, but just for the sake of curiosity. So through the viewfinder, beautiful, Lauren. Take a look at these. I'm going to zoom in. It looks sharp. I don't see any focusing problems with that center focusing square. One of the differences that you will notice in the T6i versus the T6s is that when we're doing continual shooting, the T6s can focus between burst shots while the T6i cannot do that. So I'm on a burst mode. If she's not moving, no problem. If I'm back here and Lauren take a few steps towards me, this is a problem because I can see her dropping out of focus while she's moving. You won't see that on the T6s. So we have this beautiful articulating touchscreen monitor. It's very nice. It looks different. It looks sharper. When you come into the Q menu, you can select different focusing modes. The ones I use the most are the tracking. When it's working, it's pretty nice. When I'm shooting, I like the Flexi Zone single, where you can just come in here and touch anywhere on the screen. Take a shot. So I'm in the video mode, and we want to check out the tracking feature. It varies from camera to camera, but Lauren, let me have you just go backwards and forward a couple times. We're at F9. Come towards me. See if we can make this thing jump a little bit. It's actually pretty smooth. Very nice. All tracking focus on cameras will eventually fail at some point, but this is one of the better ones I've seen. What we're going to do now is turn this to 2.8 and see if the depth of field will affect this. If you're a beginner, changing on here is very easy. It's a great way to learn is with a touchscreen monitor. And let's try it again. So the T6i and the T6s both have something called hybrid AF3, and that's different than dual pixel in that dual pixels have the ability to both focus and capture image, whereas the hybrid has dedicated focusing pixels that do not capture actual light. That's the difference between the two. And you can see this is performing actually phenomenally well. One of the better focusing systems I've seen on a DSLR camera for video. Impressive. So I didn't intend this to be a heavy testing, more of a hands-on review, but I couldn't help but to take a look at the dynamic range of the sensor. I have a very easy, quick test. And long story short, we're seeing similar performance to what we saw in the T5i, maybe a third to a half stop better, but don't expect a major improvement like we see in competing cameras like Nikon. It's definitely enough dynamic range for most shooting purposes. It's just not a major upgrade in terms of dynamic range. One important difference that you're going to note if you read the specs of the T6s, if you look at the bit rate for video recording, it's actually a little bit slower than what we saw on the T5i. It was about 44 megabits per second on the T5i. This is closer to 29. I don't know how much that's going to affect the video until I do some deeper tests, because if the codec is a little bit more efficient, it may not really matter in the long run. It just requires more testing. Just know that there is a difference. The video that we recorded, it looked fine from what I can tell so far. So the T6i and the T6s have a standard ISO range from 100 to 12,800 ISO. And I wanted to take a quick look shooting portraits at these higher ISOs. The first image is at an ISO of 6400, and when we take a look at Lauren's eyes in the background at a 100% view, I'm really liking what I'm seeing. This is very acceptable. At 12,800, same thing. Very good performance overall, even after zooming in. It's impressive, and I'm loving the images coming out of the T6i, even at very high ISOs. Now, something interesting I wanted to point out was the stark difference in grain between the RAW and the JPEGs coming out of the camera. Here is a bird shot at ISO 400, which was underexposed and then bumped up in post. Take a look at the grain at 200%. Now take a look at the same JPEG image coming out of the camera, also bumped up, and what we're seeing is some very aggressive and high-performing noise reduction software for in-camera JPEG processing. I'm liking what I see so far. It's probably going to take some more testing to figure out what's really going on. So what are my initial thoughts and conclusions about shooting with the T6i? Overall, I'm very impressed. I think the value added is going to be worth paying the extra money over something like the T5i. I expect the T5i's prices to drop, but the focusing systems, especially if you're a sports shooter, if you have kids that run around a lot, if you want to get into wildlife or bird photography, probably one of the best focusing systems I've seen in a camera in this price range. The video focusing was outstanding. Didn't have any problems with it. Very impressed. The ISO for portraits, also very impressive. The only huge thing that I wished I would have seen more was the dynamic range on the sensor. Again, it's still plenty. Now, I do like to get into more in-depth testing, take a deeper look at the ISO performance, the video ISO performance. Those tests take several days, but we are going to see an epic shootout between this and the Nikon D5500. If you're not subscribed to my channel, definitely do so, and you will be notified when that video is available. So if you guys end up getting a T6i or a T6s, you're definitely going to want to check out my crash course video. Even if you're a pure beginner, I will show you the basics and teach you how to shoot like a pro in no time. I'll put the links in the description. Thank you guys for watching. I have a lot more great stuff coming soon, and I'll catch you next time.